Well, in case you were worried that I might speak from the book of Jeremiah this morning, where is our reader? Well, she's here. Oh, here she is. Could there be another reading of any other Sunday for 3 years in which there be all those names? And you are the lucky one. Well, we won't go there this morning. But let me tell you, you may not be happy where we're going to go. Because last week and this week again, we encounter a full measure of guilt. And perhaps you felt a little tinge of uneasiness, or maybe even some anger at Luke's reminder of the impossibility of honoring and serving God and wealth. And I'll let you decide what wealth means. It's a different definition for wealth for every one of us assembled here this morning. Luke recounts for us this morning yet another parable that we might consider our encounter with the rich man and the poor man, Lazarus. One eats daily at a table fully laden of sumptuous food. I love the word, sumptuous. You can just see it. Beautiful buffet of food. And the other begs for scraps, sitting at his front door. One is clothed in the royal color of purple. The other is covered with sores, with only feral dogs licking him to somehow take away his pain and his wretchedness. The rich man is often referred to as Dives, but you will not see that word in the gospel, because in fact it is the ancient Latin word merely for one who is rich. That's all it means. The wretched one, however, the wretched one is described by name, Lazarus. In the Latin, God helps, God heals. This distinction becomes even more pronounced in the gospel, as upon their deaths one is carried away by the angels into the heavens to reside in the very bosom of Abraham. The other confined to the agony of Hades, that dark, despairing place, the Hebrew realm of the dead. There is no brightness, no song, no joy, really no life at all. And in his arrogance and hunger for all that he has known, he beseeches Father Abraham to send Lazarus that he might dip his finger into the water and have a drop upon that finger, one drop, to quench his unquenchable thirst. Abraham merely notes the obvious. In life, you receive good things, and Lazarus, not so much so. Here he is comforted, and you're in agony. End of discussion, Dives. That's it. What more is there to say? You, yes, are waking up to a hunger you should have had long ago. Only now do you realize that God promises to turn social and economic expectations upside down. You hunger indeed, but you hungered for position and power and recognition and accumulation and adulation. And so did you receive. Lazarus hungered for some food for his body. He hungered for justice for his soul. And he was denied that and so much more. Now let us be clear that the Gospels, nor our theology, preaches a bad philosophy, if you will, of wealth. Wealth is not bad, neither then nor now. There should be no suggestion that this rich man, nor any Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, is wicked and worthy only of our condemnation. There is no suggestion even that the rich man acquired his wealth and his status dishonestly or unethically. Yet we all know those whose rule of life is grounded in competition, not in compassion, greed more than generosity, self-serving far more than self-sharing. And thus we hear Paul's timeless advice to his protege Timothy this morning, as he says to Timothy and to us, in eagerness to be rich, it is so easy for you to stray away from the faith, to pierce yourself with pain in eternity. So, hunger for righteousness, for godliness, for faith, for love, for endurance, gentleness. Do good. Be rich in good works, generous, ready to share. Take hold of the true, genuine life that is being offered to you. So, can you let Jesus' parable take hold of you today? Do you hunger for the tangible things of life alone? Or can you hunger for the values that Paul reminds us of? And do you hunger to take hold of a life that is genuine and authentic, that is a life grounded in the Lord Jesus Christ, that each and all are worthy to hear, to know, to receive, to rejoice in? This parable of Jesus is really about hunger and how we satisfy it. It is a theme that can even take us back to that playground experience. That first day on the playground of kindergarten or first grade. We stood there. We stood there and there was a hunger deep within us that we might be accepted, cared about and for. Perhaps even that we might receive a little measure of love along the way. Our hunger can take us in many directions, certainly as we act upon such in daily life. Some of those destructions we know can be cruel, destructive, mean-spirited. However, our hunger can also arouse the deepest, most profound feelings, not just about ourselves, but for those who remain faithful, yet are powerless, who hunger themselves for recognition, and yet so often are unnamed or just ignored. In recent months, issues have become names. Certainly, that became true as we saw that pitiful, jarring photo of a dead father cradling his dead daughter, drowned in the Rio Grande in a futile escape from poverty and violence. They were not and are not political issues to be tossed around, to be debated, to be attacked. Here were Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and his 23-month-old daughter, Valeria. As believers in the loving liberator Jesus Christ, these are not hypothetical deaths, social welfare theories, or political issues. We are reminded of our high calling to hunger for the honor and respect of all of God's people, especially the disenfranchised and the so easily ignored. In this past week, we are reminded of yet another hunger, one that should literally be in the pit of our stomach as we walk out the door each day. We have to ask ourselves, how much do we hunger after a sustainable universe? Remembering that in the book of Genesis, God looks lovingly upon Adam and Eve and charges him with dominion over creation. That is, a charge to care for creation as much as God cares for us. As our hunger in America has driven us to distort that sense of care for the future and a coming generation, now we should hunger for what is right and a just thing to do, putting aside our insatiable appetites and hunger for a world that once again might have fresh air, clean water, sustainable crops, adequate housing, choosing to accept both the outrage and the hope of a 16-year-old Greta Thunberg of Sweden, who dares us to hunger for all that and more, and accept the dare to urgently remake a dirty, wealth-driven, selfish world into a world of sustainability for all of God's people in every corner of God's creation. Some 140 years ago, the theologian and author H.P. Liddon wrote a small commentary. It was entitled Sermons to the People. And as he reflected over today's gospel, he wrote this: for us as Christians, Christ is Lazarus to the end of time, coming to us from the dead to warn us of our duty, receiving in the persons of his poor what we give as given to himself. Surely no social catastrophe, no unforeseen providence, no palpable miracle, none of that can constrain us more effectively than his boundless, his patient, his unmerited love. Jesus pushes us, dares us to live in the vulnerability and risk of hungering for relationship, for justice, for kindness, for compassion, for love. And in that is the true wealth, not of this world, but of the world yet to be. Jesus does not ask us to take up the dare of redistribution of wealth alone. Jesus does ask us to accept the dare to encounter the living God in both person and creation.